September is Emergency Preparedness Month, National Preparedness Month through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, with other agencies statewide and locally encouraging Michiganders and other residents to be prepared for hazards inside and outside of their home. Our guest today to discuss this topic is a West Bloomfield Township Trustee with over 20 years of experience in public safety, many of those as our local police chief. Mike Patton joins us now on the Splash Live. Former chief, welcome back.
Good morning.
Glad to have you on, Trustee Patton, to talk about emergency preparedness, something that you have had a strong role in helping our community be ready for many years in your capacity with the West Bloomfield Police Department. For individuals and their families in our community, how important is their own emergency preparedness in the full scope of how our local police, fire, EMS, and other emergency apparatus factor in when an emergency hits?
Well, Tyler, thanks for inviting me on this morning. I brought up at the recent township board meeting, in addition to the other recognitions they are doing for Suicide Prevention Month and other recognitions, that September is National Preparedness Month. And I think that is something that we need to focus on probably a little bit more in the community. We're fortunate that we've not had widespread or frequent emergencies or widespread kind of catastrophes within the community. But I think it's always best to be prepared. If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. And I think that's what we need to concentrate on a little bit more sometimes. When you're looking at preparedness, you don't have to go full tilt survivalist, prepper kind of mentality. But I think there's some basic core things that we encourage our residents to do. And one of the first things you need to do is to have a plan in place. You need to sit down with your family members or important others in your life and sit back and say, what if this happened? What if there was a tornado? What if there was a protracted power outage? What if we had loss of water? We've seen those kind of things happen, at least sometimes in the recent history in West Bloomfield. But it's good to have a plan in place to talk about what you'd have. And those plans need to be perhaps unique to your family. Do you have children? Do you have pets? Do you have elderly residents in your home? Do you have people with infirmities or disabilities that need to be considered? That if we had to stay in the home here for a protracted period of time, how would we get along? How would we be able to sustain our life and health within the home? And I think those are important discussions to have.
And it's because these emergencies that do pop up, they're not small emergencies just here in Greater West Bloomfield. Often they do affect multiple communities. Yes, there are those tornado warnings that come up, those floods that come up in certain places here and there. But we have had major incidents throughout the years. The blackout in the Metro Detroit area over 20 years ago, that affected Greater West Bloomfield. The COVID-19 pandemic, even a water main break just a few years ago, shut off a significant portion of our township's water for a significant period of time, and we had to be individually and collectively prepared for that. And so, Trustee Patton, as people make that individual plan, how does that then factor into the wider spread preparedness that is often led by our police, our fire, and our EMS?
Well, look, there are always going to be public safety services that are out there working, perhaps working harder when an emergency happens. I think one of the things you need to do is to stay dialed in to understand that when something is tipping off, that you are alert and then you can activate your plan in place. There are some things we'd recommend people do. Like one is getting an emergency radio. It has no weather radio capability so that you can be alert. Now, this particular one right here, and it's not supporting any particular brand, because there's a lot you can find online, is a hand crank radio that you don't need to have electricity for. That if the power is out, you can take it out, hand crank it for a few minutes, and then you can listen to radio notifications, even if you're listening to 89.3 Lakes FM for those notifications. It's important to keep in plan. So, look, you want to have water in your home. I mean, people always think, well, if the water's out, I'll just run down to the local store, or Myers or Walmart or someplace and get some water. By the time you get out of bed and have that thought, everyone else is in line in front of you, and there may not be those local resources for you to buy. So I think it's important that you do those kind of things. You want to have sufficient water in your home for a few days. There are resources out there you can look at. You can look at the FEMA website or the ready.gov federal websites for information or suggestions. You can look at Oakland County the gov.net website and look at resources there. You can look at the state of Michigan website. One couple of things we always recommend people to do here in West Bloomfield, there is a Nixle, Nixle alert system that you can subscribe to. The information from that, you go on the township website, on the police webpage, it'll tell you how simple it is to subscribe to that. And you can get notifications whether about the road is closed due to a traffic crash or about other emergency notifications, and those are primarily put out by the police department. You can also sign up for the Oakland County alert system. I just got a notification the other day that they were changing some of their format, a specific system they were using, and you want to be able to use that and to put out a wider range area of communications. West Bloomfield we do task our emergency management responsibilities to Oakland County. So, in an area-wide emergency, we would be looking to Oakland County to help manage and resource us here in West Bloomfield in what's going on. Our great fire chief, Greg Flynn, is our point of contact for emergency management with Oakland County.
And it's all about being prepared, both individually and as your collective in your household. Even here in Greater West Bloomfield, one of the more safe communities in all of Metro Detroit and all of the state of Michigan, that preparedness does play a huge role when emergencies do arise, either in your home, in your neighborhood, or all throughout the community and beyond. West Bloomfield Township Trustee and former Police Chief Michael Patton joins us on the Splash Live for more information on National Preparedness Month, as well as resources to help you form your plan with you and yours. Ready.gov/September is the website. That is their National Preparedness Month website individually. It has plenty of different information on there, including a helpful toolkit, some messages, some additional resources for low and no cost tips that will help you and your family, building a family emergency plan and all of that. Ready.gov/September. And Trustee Patton, not only is having this information important, not only is making a plan important, the final element is then practicing that plan. How important in preparedness is the practice element?
Well, look, we always advocate an all hazards approach so that most of what you're doing or planning for could be used or applicable to whatever the situation or emergency that you're facing at the time. So whether it's a weather related thing or it's a power related or a water related, that all hazards are kind of approach. There's one website that I think it's actually based in a Michigan-based company called Do One Thing, and they advocate on a monthly basis. Matter of fact, they have calendars that you can purchase that they advocate that you start concentrating, just take one thing that you can do each month, whether it be getting water, talking about medical emergencies, developing a first aid kit, a shelter, special needs. Do one thing per month, and over the course of a year, you're basically covered probably a wide latitude of things that you should be concentrating on. Look, you mentioned earlier about the police and fire, and yes, they'll be very active in the community along with other resources in any kind of emergency. But it's important that you develop with your family, whether at home or at work, some resiliency. Because yes, government will be there to start managing and bringing containment and closure to whatever the emergency is, but you need to be, as an individual and as a family, and perhaps as a business, you need to be resilient. And you be able to survive and outlast the emergency basically on your own, maybe regardless of whether or not emergency services are there to help you.
You think about it sort of like the road commission when they're clearing out those main roads after a big snowstorm. They start with the most heavily trafficked areas. So does our local emergency services. Those areas of the greatest overall need are where they're going to start, the macro down to the micro. That's why you take care of the micro at home, outward to help the macro in our community. Chief Patton, thank you so much for your time today, as always.
Thank you very much.